have him make his opening statement, and then we'll take some questions. Whenever you're ready, Coach.
All right. Surprised y'all are still here. Okay, I'm going to be brief in some of the things that overview the spring, but I do want to hit on a couple of things that we emphasize just coming out of this past season. You know, one of the great advantages, right, is continuity, both coaches, players, and being able to take upon your experiences from a year ago and apply that to how you're going to build your roster and your defense going into our second season here. So the first thing that we wanted to make sure we did is we wanted to continue to build depth that we can trust when it matters most. You know, you think about certain games that we had this past season, particularly on the back end, right? We did not have a lot of depth, and it showed up. You know, you're playing Tennessee, you're playing really well. In the second half of that game, 5 of our top 6 defensive backs, you know, were out, and we had not built enough depth there at that position to be able to handle that. And so those are things that I think that, you know, guys that are efficient in their execution, guys that we can trust to go out there and do their job. And I thought we've addressed those needs in a number of areas, which I'm excited about. We wanted to create more negative plays. When you look at some of our measurables and statistics and all those things from last season, there's a lot of great numbers to point towards. But one thing that I thought we missed the mark on was creating negative plays and affecting the quarterback in the backfield. And so that's something that schematically we can get better at. Point of emphasis, we can get better at it. Fundamentally, we can get better at it. And a lot of it is just doing your job. You know, a lot of times when you create negative plays and you affect the quarterback in the passing game, it doesn't mean that you just win a one-on-one battle, but you rush as a unit and you keep the quarterback in the pocket as we show them different coverages on the back end. And those are things that I think we took steps in the right direction. We wanted to continue to become more and more disciplined in limiting explosive plays and also keep the penalty numbers lower. I think we've got guys that are playing with more discipline, playing within themselves, doing their job, nothing extra, no foolish penalties. I think, in 3 scrimmages that were all over 100 plays that we ran, we only had 5 penalties amongst those 3 scrimmages on defense. And so that's a really tremendous number to look towards. And really, I think 3 of those 5 penalties happened on guys that were, maybe third or whatever on the depth chart. So some real positives there in terms of the discipline that we're playing with right now coming out of spring. And then probably the last thing is continuing to bring more people along to understand how to play with offensive recognition. And that ultimately, right, when you get to a third down or a red zone or a 2-minute drive, whatever it may be, right, to have that offensive recognition, to recognize what the offense is getting ready to do and to play with more anticipation. And those are things that I think we're starting to bring some younger players along to play with a little more offensive recognition, and that now needs to continue to carry into the summertime, and then certainly fall camp, and then you get all those reps right before we open up against Florida State.
Thank you, Coach. We'll start with Chase on the far left.
During the spring, the players brought up Jeremiah Beeman's name a lot as somebody who made some big steps. Can you just speak to the spring that he had?
Yeah, really pleased with Bean and the way that the steps that he has taken this spring. I think you saw pieces of that at the end of the season, even in bowl preparation, and then what he was able to do and execute in the bowl game. He did a really nice job for us in the bowl game, and then I thought took his game to another level in the spring. And so there's a big body, a big frame that can move. He's athletic, and he is operating with consistency, right, that we can trust. And so I'm excited about his trajectory.
Opposite side, Nick.
And what kind of role do you envision for Dijon Lee in his first season with you guys?
Yeah, I think time will tell, but I think Dijon is very much on pace to contribute for us as a freshman, and that's always impressive to me when you can have a freshman that can compete in the SEC. But obviously the measurables, right? The talent, the skill level, the discipline. He reminds me a little bit of Zabian and how disciplined and detailed Zabian was when he got here, you know, Mo Linguist does a tremendous job with that group in terms of building in the fundamentals and the discipline to do your job over and over again. You know, you can have 60 snaps as a corner and you can play 58 of them really well, but if you're not consistent in those other 2 plays, right, you had a bad day. And so I think he's done a really nice job of some of the things that I have seen him, you know, not do well enough or be exposed on. He gets those things fixed, and he can sustain that fix throughout the rest of spring. And so if he'll continue on that trajectory through the summertime and then into fall camp, I think, you know, you're going to see him on the field.
We'll go to Johnny all the way in the back on the left.
T. Overton had some flashes of brilliance last year, especially that A&M game. Just wanted to get your opinion on how he's grown this spring and how you plan to use him maybe in a more versatile role next season.
Yeah, you know, I think LT, you know, is a guy that you feel like when he's out there on the field, you can trust him, right? He's going to do his job. He's very consistent. He's a team player. And I think that he can do some things in terms of generating pass rush, that he can take that another step from where he was a year ago. At times he affected the passer, but I think in terms of being able to finish in the backfield, that's something that we hope that I think we see him taking steps in the right direction amongst a number of other guys up front there. But to me, you know, LT has worked his tail off to put himself in position to compete at really the highest level, you know, I mean, of the SEC, and so we're excited for him and excited to kind of see him take that next step.
Staying on that slide, let's go to Katie.
We talked to the players last week. Ray talked about the returners being a lot more comfortable in the defense in year 2 and being able to focus on like the little details instead of just learning the defense. Is that something you've kind of seen with the returners?
Yeah, I think without question, you know, there's a comfort level, right? There's an understanding. There's a difference between knowing and understanding, right? Our players knew at times what to do a year ago. I think now they understand what to do, right? And when you have an understanding of our concepts and how they're applied situationally, you can fix things on the fly when you add that offensive recognition piece. And so, one, we have more players that are just experienced, not just in our defense, but in terms of understanding the game of football and how it's supposed to be played. And then, you know, I think there's a tremendous amount of buy-in right now. I think our guys are excited about what we're doing. You know, we've been able to have continuity in the defense and also add some wrinkles that the guys like. And so, you know, you want them to have fun. You want them to be excited to come to work. You want them to be challenged mentally and physically. And I think that we have kind of hit all of those metrics this spring.
Jump over to the right side to Alex.
You've got Damani and Xavier coming back. You're excited, obviously, about Dijon. Cam Calhoun's made good strides, it sounds like. And oh, by the way, you have Chuck McDonald coming in.
Yeah.
Where do you fit all these guys in, and is it a fun problem to solve as a defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I mean, we have something that we didn't have a year ago, which is depth on the back end, right? And that, you know, that's exciting. Quite honestly, it's what I expected when I came here to Alabama, right? That we would have great depth, and you know, you're always going to, you know, have years, right, where you have to kind of rebuild some of that depth, and you found yourself in a position of guys that left for the draft and guys in the transfer portal and the transition of you know, from Coach Saban to Coach DeBoer, right, to where we just didn't have the depth probably that we needed to be consistent on the back end throughout the year. And even that, I think our guys did a tremendous job. But now, you know, you feel like you have some bodies that you can work with. And I think, you know, some of those guys have position versatility. You know, we're going to be able to move some pieces around between the corner and safety room and dual train guys so that we find creative ways to get the right packages on the field. Because I think, to your point, these are the questions that I ask myself and the staff all the time. How do we get our best 11 on the field in the right moments? You know what I mean? And that's really my job, to be able to figure those things out, be it packages, be it situationally, and then ultimately, right, how do we make sure that the best 11 represent us when we step on the field for the first play and the last play.
We got time for a couple more questions, starting with Colin on the left.
Hey, I'm wondering what you've been able to see from Mike Taylor. What has he been able to glean from watching, I guess, Keon Sabb recover, but still be a part of the room, from Ray Hubbard
Well, I mean, I would absolutely love to have Mike Taylor on our team, who just finished with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But his son Ivan Taylor is doing a really good job with us as well. So he's really done a nice job. Ivan is really he's got a ton of energy. He's excited to be out there every single day. He's got a hunger to learn, and I think he's probably one of the best open field tacklers I've seen as a freshman. And being able to get people on the ground, that is a very challenging, difficult skill, and certainly one that that I think he's really come in probably way above average for what you would see for a young freshman. And then he's got a real knack for the ball that I'm excited to kind of build upon that. He's got to become more consistent in what he's doing, and that really speaks to all freshmen. But one that I think if he'll continue to strive at the level that he is right now, I see a path for him to be able to contribute.
Let's go far right, Matt.
What did you see from Dre Kirkpatrick this spring?
Yeah, Dre, great example, right, of a guy that took a really big step from year 1 to year 2 in the off season, and Dre is another playmaker. He's a football guy, understands the game, right, makes plays when it matters most, and I thought he flashed in a number of ways this spring. And then, the thing that is exciting to me is you saw some of those things a year ago, but the highs and the lows, right? There was too much, of a polarizing, player there, right? Whereas now I think he's playing at a much more consistent level, and he's also making plays. He's another guy that has position versatility. We can play him in, the safety position, the nickel position, and so excited to kind of work with him, this summer carrying into fall camp as well.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Okay, thanks guys, real time.